My kitchen erupted in a deafening inferno, flames clawing at my skin as the gas roared like a beast unleashed. In that gut-wrenching second, my heart shattered into a million pieces. My own daughter, Cassandra, had betrayed me, rigging my home to burn me alive for $13 million. My name's Eleanor Brooks, but everyone in Denver just calls me Ellie. At 68, I thought I'd faced every kind of pain life could throw my way when my husband, Henry, slipped away 3 weeks ago. His heart gave out after 45 years of a marriage built on quiet mornings, shared coffee, and dreams of a simple retirement in our cozy 2,000 square foot home in the suburbs. Henry was a retired engineer, a man who'd rather fix a neighbor's fence than brag about his successes. I never knew he'd been squirreling away millions from clever real estate deals across Colorado. $13 million, to be exact, a fortune he hid to keep us grounded, driving the same old Ford pickup for a decade. When the lawyer called me to his office on Colfax Avenue, my knees buckled at the number. "Ellie, Henry left it all to you," he said, sliding a stack of papers across his desk. I sat there, clutching the arms of the chair, my mind spinning. I was still drowning in grief, wearing the same black dress from Henry's funeral, when Cassandra, my only daughter, walked through my door with her husband, Derek, and their 7-year-old son, Ethan. No flowers, no condolences, just a glint in Cassandra's eyes that chilled me to the bone. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's money," she said, her voice sharp, like she was closing a deal. Derek leaned in, smirking. "13 million's too much for one person, Ellie, especially at your age." I stared at them, my heart aching. Cassandra, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike in our driveway, was now sizing me up like a prize to be claimed. Ethan stood off to the side, eyes glued to his phone, avoiding the tension. That moment, standing in my own living room, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Little did I know, Cassandra's greed was about to turn my world into a nightmare. The air in my Aurora living room felt thick, like a storm was about to break. As Cassandra stood there, her eyes glinting with something I didn't recognize, something predatory. Barely 48 hours had passed since Henry's funeral, and I was still clutching his old flannel shirt, trying to hold on to his scent, when my daughter, her husband Derek, and their son Ethan barged into my home. Cassandra didn't bother with pleasantries. No, "How are you holding up, Mom?" or even a nod to the grief that clung to me like damp fog. Instead, she planted herself on my couch, legs crossed, and cut straight to the chase. "Mom, we need to sort out Dad's estate," she said again, her voice sharp enough to slice through the silence. "It's $13 million. That's life-changing money, and we're not letting it sit there." I blinked, my hands tightening around Henry's shirt. "Cassandra, honey, I just found out about this yesterday. Can we at least talk about this after I've had some time?" My voice wavered, still raw from crying through sleepless nights. Derek, leaning against my oak bookshelf, scoffed, his smirk twisting like a knife. "Time? Ellie, you're 68. You don't need that kind of cash. What are you gonna do, buy a mansion? Take up skydiving?" His laugh was cold, like he was mocking me for daring to exist past my prime. I glanced at Ethan, my grandson, hoping for a flicker of the sweet boy who used to build Lego castles with me in this very room. But he just slouched in the corner, earbuds in, scrolling his phone, pretending he wasn't part of this ambush. Cassandra leaned forward, her manicured nails digging into the armrest. "Mom, let's be real. Derek's business is tanking. We're behind on our mortgage, $10,000 behind to be exact. Ethan's got college applications coming up, and tuition at CU Boulder isn't cheap. You're sitting on a fortune you don't even need." Her words hit like a slap, each one laced with entitlement. I could still see her at 10, twirling in a sundress at our backyard barbecues, Henry flipping burgers while she giggled. Now, that girl was gone, replaced by this stranger who saw me as an obstacle to her payday. "Cassandra, your father left this money to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He trusted me to make decisions with it. I need to think about what's best for all of us." Derek snorted, stepping closer, his 6-foot frame looming over me. Best for all of us? Ellie, the responsible thing is to split it now. Give us $10 million. That leaves you $3 million plenty for a comfy retirement in this little one, 800 square foot house of yours. His tone dripped with condescension, as if I were a child who couldn't count. I looked at Cassandra, hoping for a trace of the daughter I'd raised, but her eyes were hard, calculating. Mom, we're family, she said, her voice softening just enough to sound rehearsed. Family takes care of family. You don't want to be the reason we lose everything, do you? My stomach churned. This wasn't a conversation, it was a shakedown. I thought of Henry, how he'd always been the calm in our storms, how he'd sit at our kitchen table with a calculator, planning our future with care. He'd never have let anyone pressure me like this. I need time to process this, I said firmly, standing up to signal the end of the talk. Cassandra's face tightened, a flash of anger breaking through her mask. Time? She snapped. You're acting like this money's yours alone. Dad would have wanted us to have it. I froze, her words cutting deeper than I expected. Your father worked his whole life for this. I shot back, my voice shaking with a mix of grief and fury. He left it to me because he knew I'd honor his wishes, not hand it over to settle your debts. Derek stepped in, his voice low and menacing. Think carefully, Ellie. You're all alone in this big house now. Old ladies living on their own. Things can happen. The threat hung in the air, heavy as the Colorado snowstorms that used to keep us indoors for days. Ethan finally looked up, his eyes wide for a moment, but he said nothing, retreating back to his phone. As they left, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the windows, I sank onto the couch, Henry's shirt pressed against my chest. My heart pounded, not just from their words but from the chilling realization that Cassandra wasn't just greedy, she was dangerous. I thought of the lawyer's office, the stack of papers detailing Henry's trust, and how he'd made it clear. This money was mine to protect. But as I sat there, alone in the quiet of my Aurora home, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cassandra's demands were only the beginning. Something darker was coming. Something that would test every ounce of strength I had left. The quiet of my Aurora home, once filled with Henry's laughter and the clink of our morning coffee mugs, turned sinister in the days following Cassandra's visit. Her sharp words and Derek's veiled threat, "Accidents happen," hung over me like a dark cloud rolling in from the Rockies. I wanted to believe it was just their frustration talking, that my daughter wouldn't cross a line. But as the week unfolded, a series of chilling incidents began to unravel my sense of security, each one feeling like a deliberate jab to keep me on edge. It started on Monday morning, when I stepped onto my front porch to find my mailbox a heavy, steel box Henry had bolted down 12 years ago, torn from its post. Letters and flyers strewn across my lawn like debris after a Denver windstorm. I knelt in the cold grass, gathering soggy envelopes, my hands trembling as I told myself it was just vandals. But a sinking feeling whispered it was something more personal. By Wednesday, the stakes climbed higher. I walked out to my driveway to find my Ford sedan, the one Henry swore we'd drive until it dies, sitting lopsided, all 4 tires slashed to ribbons. The mechanic at the shop on Colfax Avenue shook his head as he loaded my car onto a tow truck. 4 tires, Ellie? That's no prank, he said, his voice low. Someone's got a grudge. I paid $650 for replacements, my heart pounding as I drove home, eyes darting to every shadow in the rearview mirror. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I couldn't bear to think Cassandra, my own flesh and blood, was behind this. But doubt gnawed at me, sharp and relentless. Thursday brought a new kind of fear. Returning from a quick trip to the Safeway on Havana Street, I found my back porch lights smashed, shards of glass scattered across the steps like jagged stars. That night, I noticed my backyard gate, always locked tight, was swinging open, muddy boot prints crisscrossing the garden where Henry's roses still bloomed. I gripped a flashlight, my pulse racing, and followed the tracks to the fence line. half expecting to see someone lurking. There was nothing but silence, but the message was loud. Someone wanted me to feel exposed, alone in my 1800 square foot house. I thought of Ethan, my grandson, wondering if he sensed his parents' plans. His silence during their visit, his refusal to meet my eyes, haunted me. Was he part of this? Or just trapped in their scheme? The breaking point came Friday at 3 a.m., when my phone's shrill ring shattered the stillness. The screen read, "Unknown caller." I answered, my voice thick with sleep. "Who's this?" A low, distorted voice rasped through the line. "Give up the $13 million, Ellie, or you won't see next week." The call ended abruptly, leaving me clutching the phone, my breath shallow. I sat up all night, Henry's old hunting knife on the nightstand, every creak of the house sounding like a threat. By morning, I couldn't pretend anymore. I drove to the Aurora police station, my hands shaky on the wheel. I didn't file a report but asked about security cameras, my voice barely steady. The officer, a young man named Carter, handed me a brochure. "You okay, Miss Brooks?" "You look spooked," he said, concern in his eyes. "Just being careful," I mumbled, but my heart wasn't in it. At a hardware store on 6th Avenue, I spent $180 on a heavy-duty deadbolt and installed it myself, my fingers fumbling but determined, channeling Henry's quiet strength. "You're tougher than you know, Ellie," he used to say. But as I locked the new bolt that night, staring at a photo of us from our last trip to Estes Park, tears blurred my vision. The smashed mailbox, slashed tires, broken light, muddy footprints, and that menacing call weren't random. They were warnings, each one tightening a noose around my life. Cassandra's greed wasn't just talk, she was stalking me, trying to break my will. As I sat in the dark, clutching that photo, I knew the worst was yet to come. I had to face the truth. My daughter was capable of anything, and I needed to protect myself before her next move. The weight of Cassandra's threats and the string of sinister incidents, my torn mailbox, slashed tires, shattered porch light, and that chilling late-night call had turned my Aurora home into a place of shadows. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a warning, and sleep had become a stranger. I kept telling myself that my daughter, the girl I'd raised with love and sacrifice, couldn't be behind this darkness. But on a cold Saturday morning, as I sat at Henry's old oak desk, sorting through his papers to make sense of the $13 million he'd left me, I stumbled upon a truth that cut deeper than any knife. Tucked inside a faded manila folder, beneath tax records and old deeds, was a letter in Henry's neat, deliberate handwriting. My hands trembled as I unfolded it, the date at the top, marking it from just 6 months before his heart gave out. "Ellie, my love," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're carrying the weight of what I've left behind. I've watched Cassandra change over the years. Her heart's grown cold, consumed by money and resentment. I fear she'll come for what's yours. Protect yourself, Ellie. You're stronger than you know." My breath caught, a sob clawing its way up my throat. Henry had seen it coming, Cassandra's greed, her willingness to betray us. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears soaking the paper, as memories flooded back. Cassandra at 5, giggling as Henry carried her on his shoulders through Denver's city park. At 12, reading poetry at our kitchen table. At 20, promising to make us proud. Where had that girl gone? How had my daughter, my only child, become someone Henry feared? I sank to the floor, the letter crumpled in my hands, my heart splintering. The room spun as I pictured Henry writing those words, his brow furrowed, knowing he wouldn't be here to shield me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered to the empty room, my voice breaking. I'd spent 45 years building a family with him, pouring love into Cassandra, believing she'd carry that love forward. But now, the slashed tires, the threatening call, the muddy footprints in my garden, they weren't random. They were her. My own daughter was waging a war against me, and Henry had known it was coming. The pain was unbearable, like 1,000 needles piercing my soul. I clutched the letter tighter, my sobs echoing in the quiet house, each one a cry for the daughter I'd lost not to death, but to something far crueler. I don't know how long I sat there, curled up on the hardwood floor, but eventually, I forced myself to stand. I stumbled to the living room, where a photo of Henry and me from our last trip to Rocky Mountain National Park sat on the mantel. His arm was around me, his smile warm under the Colorado sun. "You were right, Henry," I said, my voice hoarse. "She's not our little girl anymore." I thought of Ethan, my grandson, his silence during Cassandra and Derek's ambush. Was he caught in their greed? Or was he just too scared to speak? I wanted to believe he was still the boy who'd spent summers helping me plant tulips, but doubt gnawed at me. Had I lost him too? That afternoon, I drove to my lawyer's office on 17th Street, the letter folded carefully in my purse. Mr. Thompson, a gray-haired man who'd known Henry for decades, listened as I poured out my fears. "Ellie, Henry was clear in his will," he said, adjusting his glasses. "The $13 million is yours to manage, but there's a clause. If you give away more than half within a year, the rest goes to a veterans charity." His voice softened. "Henry wanted to protect you from pressure, especially from Cassandra." I nodded, my throat tight. "She's been calling my office nonstop," he added, his tone grim, demanding details about the estate. "I told her it's your business, but she's relentless." I left his office with a fire kindling in my chest, a mix of grief and resolve. Henry's letter had shattered me, but it also woke something up. I wasn't just a grieving widow, helpless in my 1,800 square foot house. I was Eleanor Brooks, and I'd fought through worse, raising Cassandra alone while Henry worked long hours, scraping by in our early years. As I drove back to Aurora, the Denver skyline fading in my rearview mirror, I knew I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Cassandra's actions weren't just about money, they were a betrayal of everything Henry and I had built. The slashed tires, the broken glass, the threatening call, they were her way of trying to break me. But I wasn't broken yet. I needed answers, and I needed to protect myself before her next move pushed me past the point of no return. Henry's letter had ripped my heart open, his words a haunting warning that Cassandra's greed had turned her into someone I no longer knew. The smashed mailbox, slashed tires, broken porch light, and that menacing 3 a.m. call had already shaken my world, but the realization that my own daughter could be orchestrating this nightmare left me reeling. I refused to sit helpless in my 1,800 square foot Aurora home, waiting for her next move. On Sunday morning, with Henry's voice echoing in my mind, "Protect yourself, Ellie." I drove to a security store on Colfax Avenue and spent $1,200 on a set of wireless cameras, tiny, motion-activated, with night vision. They were my new eyes in a house that no longer felt safe. The technician, a young woman named Sarah, installed them discreetly around my property above the front door, in the living room, near the basement stairs. "You expecting trouble, Miss Brooks?" she asked, noticing the bruise on my hand from gripping Henry's baseball bat too tightly. "Just being careful," I said, my voice tight, but my eyes betrayed the fear I couldn't shake. For 3 nights I barely slept, my laptop glowing in the dark as I checked the camera feeds, half expecting to see nothing but shadows. But on Wednesday, at 2:47 a.m., the truth hit like a thunderclap. The basement camera flickered to life, capturing Cassandra slipping through the side door she'd had a key to since college. Her face, illuminated by the infrared glow, was cold as marble, her movements deliberate as she crept toward the gas furnace. My heart stopped as I watched her kneel, a wrench in her hand, tampering with the gas line. Derek trailed behind, his voice a low hiss caught by the camera's mic. "Make it quick, Cass. A leak's perfect, no one'll question an old house blowing up." Cassandra's reply was chilling. "She's 68, Derek. Accidents like this happen to old widows. The $13 million will be ours by morning." My hands shook as I paused the footage, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just greed, it was murder. planned with the precision of a predator. My daughter, the girl I'd sung lullabies to, was rigging my home to explode, betting my life against Henry's fortune. I replayed the video, each frame searing into my mind. Cassandra's calculated movements, Derek's eager nod, the wrench glinting as she loosened a valve. I thought of Ethan, my grandson, wondering if he knew his parents were plotting this. His silence during their visit, his avoidance, now felt like a warning I'd missed. Had they pulled him into their scheme? Or was he just too scared to speak? I drove to my lawyer's office on 17th Street at dawn, the USB drive with the footage burning a hole in my purse. Mr. Thompson's face paled as he watched the video on his laptop. "Ellie, this is attempted murder," he said, his voice grave. "Henry's will has a clause. If you die within a year, Cassandra inherits everything. No restrictions. They're counting on that." I gripped the arms of the chair, my mind racing. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You need the police," he said firmly. "This is beyond family disputes." I nodded, but the weight of his words crushed me. Turning my daughter over to the law felt like betraying her, yet she'd already betrayed me in the worst way. That afternoon, I met with Officer Patel at the Aurora police station, the same officer who'd given me the security pamphlet. I showed her the footage, my hands trembling as Cassandra's cold voice played through the laptop speakers. Patel's jaw tightened. "Miss Brooks, this is serious. We can charge them with conspiracy, but we need more to make it stick something undeniable." She leaned forward, her eyes steady. "Are you willing to set a trap? Let them think they're succeeding, but we'll be watching." My stomach churned at the thought of facing Cassandra again, knowing what she was capable of, but Henry's letter flashed in my mind. "You're stronger than you know." I took a deep breath. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Patel outlined a plan. Keep the cameras running, act unaware, and wait for Cassandra to make her next move. They'd monitor my house, ready to intervene. As I drove home, the Denver skyline blurring through my tears, I felt a shift inside me. The grief and betrayal that had broken me were hardening into resolve. Cassandra thought she was hunting a helpless old woman, but I was done being her prey. I clutched the steering wheel, my knuckles white, knowing the cameras would catch whatever came next. She was planning to destroy me, but I was ready to turn her trap against her. The stage was set, and I was about to uncover just how far she'd go. The chilling footage of Cassandra tampering with my gas line in the dead of night had stripped away any lingering hope that my daughter could be redeemed. Her cold, calculated plan to stage an explosion in my Aurora home, all for Henry's $13 million, had transformed my grief into a steely resolve. Officer Patel's words at the police station echoed in my mind. "We need something undeniable." I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore, I was fighting for justice, for the truth Henry had foreseen in his letter. With the cameras still rolling in my 1,800 square foot house, I agreed to a dangerous plan. Let Cassandra think her scheme was working, lure her into action, and catch her red-handed. Detective Laura Hayes, a sharp-eyed woman with 15 years on the force, took charge, briefing me in a quiet corner of the Aurora police station. "We'll stage a controlled gas leak," she said, her voice steady. "You'll play along, act shaken, and we'll be watching every move. You say sunflower if it gets too real." I nodded, my heart pounding, knowing this could be my only chance to stop Cassandra before she succeeded. Back home, I kept my routine normal, watering Henry's roses, checking the mail, all while the police set up surveillance. Unmarked vans parked 2 blocks away on Havana Street, and a team of officers monitored my camera feeds from a command post. The air in my house felt thick with anticipation, every creak of the floorboards making my pulse jump. On Thursday evening, Cassandra called, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Mom, I've been worried about you," she said, as if she hadn't planned my death. "Let me come over tomorrow night and check on you. I'll bring dinner your favorite chicken pot pie like when I was a kid." My stomach twisted at the irony. her offer cloaked in nostalgia but reeking of deceit. "That sounds nice, honey," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "Come by at 6. Friday dragged on, each hour heavier than the last. Detective Hayes arrived early, wiring me with a tiny microphone hidden under my sweater. "We've rigged a small gas valve to release a safe amount," she whispered, checking the device. "It'll smell real, but it won't ignite. We're 3 minutes away if you need us." I nodded, gripping Henry's old wedding band in my pocket for strength. At exactly 6 p.m., Cassandra pulled into my driveway in her sleek SUV, carrying a foil tray of pot pie. Derek stayed in the car, his silhouette tense, while Ethan wasn't with them, a small relief, as I clung to the hope he wasn't part of their plot. Cassandra's smile was too bright, her hug too stiff. "Mom, you look pale," she said, her eyes scanning me like a hunter sizing up prey. "This house feels stuffy. Let me check the furnace, make sure everything's okay." I followed her to the basement, my heart racing as the faint hiss of gas filled the air, just as the police had planned. Cassandra knelt by the furnace, her fingers brushing the tampered valve, a satisfied glint in her eyes. "Smells like a leak, Mom," she said, her voice calm but eager. "You should sit down. I'll handle this." I clutched the stair railing, pretending to waver. "I feel dizzy," I said, my voice trembling for effect, though the fear was real. She guided me upstairs, her touch cold, and sat me on the couch. "Stay here," she said, hurrying back to the basement. The cameras caught every move as she adjusted the valve further, thinking she was sealing my fate. My breath hitched as the gas smell grew stronger, a faint haze in the air. I whispered, "Sunflower," into the mic, my voice barely audible. Within seconds, the front door burst open, and Detective Hayes stormed in with 4 officers, their boots pounding the hardwood. "Cassandra Miller, you're under arrest for attempted murder," Hayes shouted, her gun drawn. Cassandra froze in the basement doorway, her face a mask of shock that melted into rage. "What is this?" she screamed, dropping the wrench with a clatter. "Mom, what did you do?" Derek bolted from the car, but officers tackled him in the driveway, cuffs snapping shut. I stood, my legs shaky but my voice firm. "I trusted you, Cassandra," I said, tears burning my eyes. "But you chose money over me." As the police led her away, her screams echoing down my quiet street, I felt a hollow victory. The cameras had caught her in the act, but the cost was my daughter's betrayal laid bare. Hayes placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Ellie. We've got everything we need." But as I watched Cassandra's SUV disappear under flashing lights, I knew this wasn't the end. The pain of her actions lingered, and I had to ensure she'd never hurt me or anyone again. The fight wasn't over, but I was ready for what came next. The echo of Cassandra's screams as the police hauled her away lingered in my Aurora home, a haunting reminder of the daughter I'd lost to greed. The staged gas leak, captured by my cameras and foiled by Detective Hayes' swift intervention, had exposed Cassandra and Derek's plot to kill me for Henry's $13 million. As I stood in my 1,800 square foot house, now quiet except for the hum of the furnace, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I'd survived, but at the cost of my only child. The weeks that followed were a blur of police reports and court hearings. Cassandra, defiant to the end, confessed to tampering with the gas line, claiming she was desperate to save her family from financial ruin. Derek, less resolute, tried to pin the blame on her, but the footage of their whispered plans in my basement sealed their fate. The judge sentenced Cassandra to 20 years in a Colorado state prison, while Derek got 15 for his cooperation. Each gavel strike felt like a nail in the coffin of the family I'd once known. I sat through the trial in a Denver courtroom, my hands clasped tightly around Henry's old wedding band, now worn on a chain around my neck. Ethan, my 17-year-old grandson, was there too, living with Derek's parents since the arrest. His eyes, red-rimmed and hollow, avoided mine. but I could see the weight of his parents' actions crushing him. After the sentencing, I approached him outside the courthouse, my voice soft. "Ethan, honey, I'm here for you," I said, reaching out. He flinched, his voice barely a whisper. "Grandma, I didn't know they'd go that far, I swear." I nodded, my heart aching for the boy caught in this wreckage. "I believe you," I said, squeezing his shoulder. "Your Grandpa Henry would want you to keep going, to make something good out of this." He gave a small nod, tears spilling over, and I vowed to protect him from the fallout of his parents' choices. Back in Aurora, I couldn't stay in a house that felt tainted by Cassandra's betrayal. I sold the 1,800 square foot home where Henry and I had built our life, using $10 million of the inheritance to establish the Henry Brooks Foundation for Elder Protection. The foundation, launched in a small office on Colfax Avenue, aimed to help seniors across Colorado facing financial abuse from family members. I hired lawyers and counselors, offering free legal aid and safe housing to those betrayed by the ones they loved most. The first client, a 72-year-old widow named Ruth from Boulder, sat across from me, her hands trembling as she described her son draining her savings. "I thought he loved me," she whispered, her voice breaking. I took her hand, my own eyes stinging. "You're not alone, Ruth," I said. "We'll fight for you." Helping her, and others like her, felt like channeling Henry's love into something bigger than my pain. The foundation grew quickly, recovering $2.5 million in stolen assets within 6 months, and sending 7 family members to court for elder abuse. Each case healed a piece of me, turning my grief into purpose. I thought of Henry's letter, his warning about Cassandra, and how he'd trusted me to carry on. "You're stronger than you know, Ellie," he'd written, and I was proving it every day. Ethan, too, found his footing. He visited me one Sunday, his college applications tucked under his arm. "Grandma, I got in to CU Boulder," he said, a shy smile breaking through. "I want to study social work, help people like you're doing." My heart swelled with pride, seeing Henry's kindness in him. "Your grandpa would be so proud," I said, pulling him into a hug. As I sat in my new, smaller condo near Denver City Park, I realized the $3 million I'd kept was more than enough for a simple life. The foundation, Ethan's future, and the seniors we helped gave me a purpose I'd never imagined at 68. Cassandra's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it also revealed a strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't just a widow surviving a nightmare, I was a fighter, building a legacy Henry would smile down on. Yet, as I looked out at the Rockies, I knew this wasn't the end. I had to share this story, to warn others and give them the tools to protect themselves. The world needed to know that love shouldn't cost your life, and I was ready to spread that message. As I sit in my quiet condo near Denver City Park, the Rockies glowing softly in the distance, I think of Henry's steady hand in mine, and the daughter I lost to greed. Cassandra's attempt to end my life for $13 million broke my heart. But it didn't break me. Through the Henry Brooks Foundation, I've found purpose, helping seniors like Ruth reclaim their lives from betrayal. At 68, I've learned that true wealth isn't in bank accounts, it's in the courage to stand up, to fight for what's right, even when it hurts. If you're watching this and feel the sting of family pressure, know you're not alone. Protect yourself. Talk to a lawyer. Secure your home. Trust your instincts. Don't let love blind you to danger. If you see someone, a parent, a grandparent, facing this kind of abuse, step in. Speak up. A phone call, a question, could save a life. This journey taught me that strength comes from facing the truth, no matter how painful. I hope my story resonates with you, maybe even moves you to share your own. Please, drop a comment below, tell me, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Your voice matters. If this touched you, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like mine, ones that uncover the raw truth of betrayal and resilience, subscribe to the Unwanted Revenge. Together, We can shine a light on the shadows and help others find their strength. As I look out at the mountains, I feel Henry's love guiding me still, and I know I'm not done fighting, not for me, but for all of us.